Okay, so I would like to introduce everybody to Brad Londin, hosting our Launching Your Fundraising Committee and Staying in Compliance with ELEC information session. A little bit about Brad. He loves music and loves to travel. He's a big sense of humor and adores animals. He enjoys poetry, dancing, and watching sports. Brad grew up in Rockland County, New York, and earned a BS degree from SUNY Albany. And after college, he spent a decade living in New York City in the boroughs of Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, while he spent his formative working years at American Express. This past spring, though, Brad completed a fellowship at the Movement School where he earned an accreditation in finance. He's a student mentor now and has been active in local left organizations, including being on the PHC executive board and managing the chapter's continuing political committee as its treasurer. He was also the deputy campaign manager for the chapter's inaugural slate of county committee candidates. Very informed, very well trained, and very, very funny. And with that, I will give it off to you, Brad.
Nick, thank you so much for the kind introduction. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad that we are recording this for posterity. I have on the screen the presentation that I hope you're all able to see. I am unable to see you. So Nick, if there are any questions that come up in the chat, feel free to interrupt me.
Yeah, I'll shut them down.
Anyone else, try to make this as interactive as possible. So not a rote presentation here, but I do want to welcome you all to our annual meeting, to breakout session number 2, and specifically this session on launching your fundraising committee and staying in compliance. And so as we kick off, a couple of quotes. And because I do like interactive, and we've had some great support from so many partners, including our colleagues at Ranked Choice Voting, I'm going to throw some quotes here, and then at the end of the screen, feel free to throw your 1, 2, 3, 4 in any order of the quote that resonates most with you. So first quote: "I learned in school that money isn't everything. It's happiness that counts. So mama sent me to a different school." Famed actress Zsa Zsa Gabor. "The best things in life are free, but you can give them to the birds and bees. I want money. Money is what I want." We know the Beatles. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. That one resonated with me. Last one here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 from the top, throw them into the chat. What might resonate most with you? "Instead of politicians, let the monkeys govern the country. At least they will only steal the bananas." So thanks for your engagement in the chat, but just wanted to anchor us a little bit to what this conversation is. Money is a difficult topic for many, and it is also vital that we be able to raise the funds and do so in a way that is above board. And so talking a little bit about that, what must we do here at the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey, and where I spend a lot of my time in the Hudson County chapter? We are an electoral organization. We are here to recruit, train, and support candidates at all levels of office. And in order for someone to put their hat into the arena to run for office, there are tremendous barriers of entry, and money is near the top of that list. And so what we've set out to do is create a mechanism that we can support candidates who are running for the first time, or challengers that are coming back into the arena again, or supportive incumbents who are leading in a progressive direction. And so thinking about the reduction of this primary barrier of entry, money. So there were a couple of challenges that the Hudson County chapter faced. And so we need money to recruit, train, and support those candidates. And so what we were able to do in our inaugural campaign earlier this spring and summer, and a big thank you to those of you who helped to support that campaign with donations, we were very successful in our fundraising efforts. And that is what enabled us to provide this viable path for progressive candidates who many of them may not would have taken the plunge into politics because it is expensive. And so we were successful in our fundraising efforts, and we were able to, as we think about how we spend that money, understand that Progressive Democrats of New Jersey is a C4 organization. And so legally, what this means is that we need to spend our funds on a mix of educational and social work, as well as on electoral politics. And we need to spend more of our dollars on electoral politics. So by creating the continuing political committee, we were able to have more funds available for electoral politics. The continuing political committee, the CPC, is the vehicle that we've deployed to raise and distribute funds on behalf of our candidates for elected office. And this is how we're going to achieve economies of scale. The other challenge that we thought about, which is related here, is trust. We're a new organization, and politics has a dirty stench, and that is deserved. We've seen too often promises broken, pay-to-play schemes, and all types of other levels of corruption. And so for us to be true to our brand as good government focused, progressive candidates and supporters of those candidates, we really need to differentiate ourselves from the business as usual. And the advantage of having our CPC is around transparency. So even when we don't need to report, we do report, because we want to show that we are funded by an army of small donations. We've seen that that is a winning strategy for politicians large and small. And it is the transparency through reporting that we do that is, I think, what's differentiated us from a number of other organizations in the space locally. So want to tell you a little bit about our journey over this year. Two major elections that took place in the late spring, early summer, and then just recently. So as we look back to Q1, our executive board in Hudson County was thinking about the best mechanism that would help us to meet our objectives to recruit, train, and support candidates. We got our ducks in a row, the paperwork organizationally, and I'll talk a little bit about some of those finer points in a moment, but we were able to get approved by the Election Commission. And you see the screenshot of our approval email, very proud of that, in the lower left. And so now that we've stood up this CPC, it was time to raise money and then spend that money on behalf of our county committee candidates. We had a fantastic fundraising quarter. In the second quarter, we brought in north of $10,000. We were able to spend that money on legal challenges and lawyers to support our campaigns, on the campaign collateral, the door knockers and the flyers, on the candidates and the training. And so that enabled us to really make a name. 8 of our candidates won their races and now serve on our county. We went to the first recount in living memory for the county committee. And we did uncover that there was an incorrect counting of the votes. Unfortunately, not in our favor, but I think showing up and putting some dollars behind what transpired in that June election has continued to show that we are a serious organization and we're in it for the long haul. And so we moved into late summer and the fall, and we were looking at the next elections, and that's the countywide municipal elections. So we thought about how we were going to play in this space. A shout out to one of our members, Danielle Frieri, who ran for city council in Jersey City, came up short this time around, but Danielle, you've inspired me and so many others, and so thank you for that. We put together, we being the selections committee of the Hudson County chapter of the Progressive Democrats, a template for candidate endorsements. We created a questionnaire and we circulated that. We reviewed the responses. We did some more digging, looked at financial contributions that were reported, had some very spirited discussions, and we made a number of endorsements, and a couple of those candidates won their races, an incumbent as well as a first-time challenger. And I would like to shout out that there is a runoff on Tuesday. So if you live in Jersey City, in Ward, I'm going to say C, but I might be wrong. B.
C.
C, it was C. All right, great. So thank you for confirming. If you live in Ward C, Kevin Bing is going to hopefully be your next city council council member, but please get out and vote on Tuesday. And there are many other ways to continue to support, including providing additional contributions to our CPC. So thank you in advance for your consideration. But that's just a bit of a snapshot of what we've been doing year to date and some of the money we've spent. So I want to talk for a minute about what is this continuing political committee, this CPC. And what you see here is a little bit dry. It's taken right from the ELEC website, but a CPC is defined as two or more persons acting jointly, or any corporation, partnership, or other incorporated or unincorporated association, including a political club, political action committee, civic organization, or other organization, which in any calendar year contributes or expects to contribute at least $7,200 to aid or promote the candidacy of an individual or candidacies of individuals for elected public office, or the passage or defeat of a public question or public questions, and which may be, and I will stop reading here, but this is kind of the definition of what a continuing political committee is. I think the headline that I would say is, there's not very much that one needs to do to establish a CPC if you are a legit organization and you have two officers who will sign the forms, complete, and attest to that. And so that's really how you create that. You go to the ELEC website, get the form, download it, fill it out, certify it, and send it in. And so that's what I'm showing you here on this next slide. The registration statement is the Form D4. You will have a chairperson and a treasurer that will certify the validity of the documentation, and you'll need a depository bank that is designated for the CPC. So that paperwork and attestation is sent along to the Election Commission, who will hopefully grant your approval. And upon that, you are able to begin leveraging your CPC to raise and distribute funds. And so that's what we did in the first quarter of this year. And then each quarter thereafter, there are quarterly filing reports. I believe it's the D3 report that I've been filing quarterly for us. And so really what the quarterly certification looks at are the contributions that we have received, the expenditures that we've made, and the depository that is linked to our accounts. And so talking about contributions, there's clearly the financial contribution. Thank you to our 200 plus unique donators who provided contributions, small and a little bit larger, and even a little bit larger than that over the course of the last several months. But we also received in-kind donations. And if you think about an in-kind donation, it might be that your local coffee joint is going to provide coffee for your volunteers. And so instead of giving you money in cash, we are reporting, I am certifying the amount of dollars that those coffees would have equated to for those that were canvassing on such a day. And we report that type of contribution as well. I know that there may be some folks in other chapters of the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey or other organizations that would be considering launching a CPC for your efforts. And what I just want to tell you is to keep the receipts. It is for anyone who's ever had to fill out an expense report, it's much easier to have that information at hand and take a photo of it on your phone or what have you, and don't kind of scramble at the end, because that's going to make it much more difficult to do your quarterly reporting. But pretty straightforward. And what I want to now do is a couple of screens actually anchor you to the ELEC website and our ActiveBlue account. So what you're looking at is our real information. On the left is the Election Law Enforcement Commission website, and where you kick off with filing your reports. On the right is our actual CPC for PDHC, and you see on the right side there, these are the reports that we have filed. There's a PDF of the last filed report, and what we're really going in and doing is on the left side here, the contributions. So who was the contributor? Where do they live? Are they employed? And the address of their employer, and then what they contributed and when. And so we have a number of recurring contributors. Thank you so much to those who give us $5 a month. It's critical that we build that up. And so I invite you all to become a sustaining member of our CPC. And then I will, on a quarterly basis, include your information here on the left. On the right is where we spend the money. And so you see, not very onerous in terms of the requirements. We do have to categorize the type of expense that's being made, but it's something that once you've done it once or twice, it doesn't take very long. And as long as you're keeping track of your chapter's budget and noting receipts and payments, this should be pretty easy for you to maintain and submit on a quarterly basis. We use ActBlue to manage our contributions. It's been a slow quarter to date with only $217 received from 10 contributions. So anyone here on this call can go in and make a difference right now and help us. If you don't have the link, we'll certainly follow up with that. But showing you here that you're linking your ActBlue account, which is tied to the bank account, the depository account, to the CPC. And the funds that are collected from ActBlue go directly into the depository account linked to the CPC. And that is how we manage our funds. And you can see on the bottom right that you're able to, at reporting time, extract the CSV for that month, and you'll have all of the data needed to complete your reporting. So let's do another ranked choice voting of quotes, because I think that that's fun, and it'll help us kind of move into the final part of the speaking here, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So here's some politicians who have said some things, and then one non-politician who can kind of sort of be seen as a politician. Elizabeth Warren, it's a story about what's worth fighting for, and how sometimes, even when we fight against very powerful opponents, we can win. Bernie said, I believe that when we stand together, when we share the vision that government should work for us, there is nothing we can't accomplish. We heard from Barack Obama that ordinary folks do extraordinary things. And so that's something that we should all remember. It does take the ordinary work of ordinary folks to do extraordinary things. And so nothing too small. Rome wasn't built in a day. AOC said that she never saw herself going into politics, but now that I sit here in this room with you all, I just feel like we can only accomplish great things together. And so for those of you here considering or not yet considering running for something, please consider it. Please talk to your friends and neighbors and get them to consider it. And we're all too happy to help recruit and train and support candidates. Final quote here, and then drop in the chat 1 through 5 or by name of the author, what resonates most with you. But Bono says that the worst disease in the world today is corruption, and there is a cure: transparency. And so that kind of goes back to what we're doing with the CPC, is enabling that level of transparency. So whether you're a fan of Liz or Bernie or Barack or AOC or the man who leads the Red campaign, feel free to drop some of that in the chat. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Anything that's burning on your minds? Feel free to drop it in the chat or interrupt.
Drop it in the chat, or you can raise your hand using the reactions button on the bottom right of your screen. Either way.
Thanks, Nick, for that instruction. So, here's the thing. We have proven that our approach can be successful. And what we've done in Hudson County is replicable and scalable for the other county chapters of the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey, as well as other organizations. And so know that you're not starting from scratch, that there is a brain trust and a lot of documentation and some practice kind of going through this that we'll be able to support you with. But the benefits of being able to ensure transparency and to deliver economies of scale for our candidates and those that we support in the progressive landscape, it really is going to rely on small donors. And this is our vehicle to be able to translate those donations into real success. So what are our next steps? I'll be very real with you. Fundraising is currently centered around elections. And there isn't another election happening imminently. We just had our state elections here a month ago. We'll have congressional elections next year. It's great in New Jersey because we vote every year, being on the odd year, but there still are going to be a number of months, and we can't wait until the summer and the fall of next year. We really need to have a fundraising strategy that is robust and that enables our continuing political committee to spend on behalf of candidates in a way that helps them win. So the other piece is that our early successes have definitely raised some eyebrows, and we're not operating in a vacuum. And we can expect that next elections are only going to be more expensive because the political machine is now aware that we are a force to be reckoned with, that we are serious, and that we don't have anything to lose here other than just giving it our best effort. And so to those who have gone before and helped to awaken spirit of progressive politics in New Jersey, from those who continue with us today, and for those who will be leading us tomorrow. It's an ugly thing, the money and the politics, but it is part and parcel of what we have to do in order to be successful. And so please, again, consider making a monthly recurring donation to our CPC. And with that, thank you so much. My contact information is here on the screen, but I'm happy to open it up to any questions you may have, and I'll come back to so you can see my face. But if you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand.
Well, it's also just a
Great, great to see you two again, or see your names at least.
Brad, I have a question. How or where can people get trained to do the things you just showed us you do, the ELEC forms and being able to manage a CPC? Where can someone get trained to do that?
You have my contact information. Feel free to send me an email, shoot me a text or a call, and we can set up, the 5-10 minutes. I think that, it's an honor to have an opportunity to speak to the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey today at our annual meeting. It's not a ton of heavy content. It really is something that requires just a few pieces being in place, that bank account, that chairperson and treasurer. If it's filling out the 2 to 3 page form, I'm happy to help you do that. But what happens when completing that form is you get 2 numbers. Those numbers are your access into the ELEC site and for your organization. So that's the piece of information that you'll safeguard. But once you have that, you're enabled, and you go to the website and it's a few clicks. Hey, if I could figure it out, can't be that difficult because tech is not my first skill.
And just to butt in, just since, we live together, I do recall that you received some sort of documentation from them when you first registered. And it's pretty thorough in terms of here are all the different reports and here's when you have to do them and this and that. I mean, for somebody that was brand new to it, I think it was definitely a little bit like, does this apply to us? Are we big enough? There was a little bit of navigating, but they do send a pretty thorough report. And I even remember you had a question for somebody, and it may have taken a few days for them to get back to you, but they were able to, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were able to call you and spent quite a few minutes on the phone with you to kind of guide you through some of the answers. So,
100% right. Yep, there's a chat.
Brad's here as a resource, but there are other resources that do make themselves available.
Yep, the chat feature on the ELEC website, very helpful. And the packet that you'll receive in the mail, very thorough.
Sweet. No one else has a question. I have another one for myself and posterity. Having less money, I think, is a common disadvantage for progressive campaigns in pretty much every level. And having just gone through one very successfully, I will add. Do you have any advice or tips for campaign finance directors or treasurers for what to look out for, places where you think the money is best or well spent?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that what's critical about a CPC is that the funds can only be spent on direct electoral uses. So we can't spend that money on member activities. We can't spend that money on, like a new website for PDHC, right? That money that we collect in the CPC has to be spent either for campaign contributions to candidates or for supporting those candidates with the campaigning materials, the collateral. We also brought on paid organizers. And so for canvassing and for all of the data that we manage, the phone and the text banking operations, I don't want to sacrifice any of it, but I think that nothing beats knocking on a door and introducing yourself to your neighbors and asking them to become engaged. And so while we are very conscious of union printed materials and eco-conscious as well, we're not looking to waste paper and litter in our streets, leaving behind information is really important. And I think we were able to innovate and provide information via QR code, other ways to leave behind information in a more eco-conscious way. But spending that money from a translation service so that we can provide materials accessibly to folks and really let them understand what this election is about, whether it's county committee, municipal, city council, or anything else. So treat folks like adults, like, this is what we're doing. This is the high level. Now you're educated, and be open. And I think that providing that is more important than a radio ad or a Facebook ad or, a banner on the highway.
So I just wanted to say that, we did have, as Brad alluded to, we did door knockers for the county committee. And then we also created, which wasn't very expensive at all, with just some internal how-to pamphlets for the candidates themselves when they were going around. And that was a little bit different because we were actually managing that campaign as opposed to the recent council races where we're endorsing and providing support. We also did call and text banking and purchasing data. And that was where the majority of the money that we spent, in addition to a couple of paid organizers that put some time in at the end. Although we did have a lot of volunteers as well. We wanted to dabble in digital a little bit because it is pretty inexpensive. We had some hurdles. I know you're aware of them, Nick. I disagree that that's not worth it at all. I think that at the level that we're at, we really haven't been able to test on whether or not that was effective. But it is something we would like to do in the future. And it's not something that we feel like we would need to be spending a ton of money on to maybe get some results. So, when there's a few extra expendable dollars, that's definitely something I suggest. And obviously on our VP of communications, so that's where that's coming from, for Jesse and Griff, if they're not aware of that. But yeah. So, and then I think I don't know if Brad already said this, but for the candidates that we endorse, we really focused on the text banking the most, is where we kind of put the dollars there.
Yep, at the direction of the candidates. So thank you for filling in some of that. And Jesse, Griff, unless any questions, back over to you, Nick.
All right, we have a couple minutes before our next session, so why don't we all of us jump back over to the main room. You can click the blue button in the bottom right, leave room, and it should take you straight back. Thank you
so
Brad.
much.